The Los Angeles studio of the late glow pulsed with life under LED lights, burning at a steady 75-degree Celsius. Their glow, casting sharp shadows across a polished stage that smelled faintly of espresso and stage polish. It was March 2026, and the air buzzed with the electric anticipation of a live audience, their rhythmic claps echoing off sleek walls lined with digital screens flashing the show's neon logo. The crowd, a mix of locals and tourists packed into plush seats, roared as the house band ripped through a jazzy intro, the bass thumping like a heartbeat beneath the chatter. This was Hollywood at its finest, a glittering machine of charisma and connection, where every laugh was scripted and every moment curated. But tonight, something felt off, like a chord struck just out of tune. Marcus Tate, the host, bounded onto the stage with the effortless charm of a man born for the spotlight. His tailored suit caught the light, his grin wide enough to rival the California sun. "Welcome to the late glow, folks," he bellowed, arms spread as if embracing the entire room. The audience erupted, whistling and cheering, their energy a tidal wave that filled the 70-foot-wide studio. Marcus, a former stand-up comic turned late-night king, had a knack for making every guest feel like an old friend and every viewer at home feel like they were in on the joke. He adjusted his tie, flashed a wink at the camera, and settled into his desk, a glossy slab of oak, adorned with a coffee mug bearing his initials in gold. "We've got a killer show tonight. And let me tell you, our first guest is basically a national treasure." The screens behind him flickered, and a montage of Keanu Reeves filled the space clips from The Matrix, John Wick, and his latest sci-fi epic, Nebula's End, which had theaters buzzing. The audience cheered louder, some standing, as Keanu stepped into the light. At 61, he carried the same quiet intensity that had made him a legend. His shoulder-length hair streaked with silver, his black blazer and jeans a nod to his timeless style. He waved, his smile warm but faint, not quite reaching his eyes, which seemed to hold a shadow the cameras couldn't catch. The crowd roared, chanting "Keanu, Keanu" as he crossed the stage, his boots soft against the polished floor. Marcus leapt up for a quick hug, clapping Keanu's shoulder. "Man, you still look like a samurai monk crossed with a rock star from the 90s. The audience laughed, the sound bright and easy. But Keanu's nod was curt, his hands folding calmly in front of him as he took his seat. On the desk between them sat a glass of water, a notepad, and an oddity, a cracked smartwatch, its face spider-webbed with fractures, a faint hum emanating from its casing. It wasn't a prop, it was Keanu's. A gift from a late director who'd shaped his early career, a relic he wore like a talisman. He glanced at it, his fingers brushing the shattered glass, and something in his posture shifted, his shoulders hunching slightly as if bracing for a storm. Marcus, oblivious, sipped from his mug and leaned forward, his voice dripping with playful curiosity. "So, Keanu, Nebula's End is blowing up. You're out here saving the galaxy again. What's next? You gonna solve world peace like Elena Voss?" The name landed like a stone in still water, Elena Voss. The tech mogul, turned UN Special Envoy for Global Unity, was everywhere, her face on billboards, from Sunset Boulevard to Times Square. Her AI-driven humanitarian campaigns hailed as the future of compassion. She was a phenomenon, her speeches polished to a sheen, her smile so flawless it felt algorithmically designed. Marcus grinned, tossing out a quip for the crowd. "I mean, she's like a TikTok filter in human form, right? All glow, no flaws." The audience chuckled, a few clapping, but Keanu didn't join them. His hand froze on the smartwatch, his jaw tightening. The studio's warmth seemed to drop, the air conditioning's hum fading, as if the room itself held its breath. The lights, steady at 75 degrees, flickered just once, but enough to make the crowd stir. Keanu's eyes, dark and searching, met Marcus's. "There's something about her," he said, his voice low, almost swallowed by the microphone's static. The words carried a weight that silenced the room, the audience's laughter dying like a snuffed flame. Marcus blinked, his grin faltering, caught off guard by the shift. He leaned in, trying to salvage the levity. "Whoa, you mean, like, her vibe? Or does she remind you of someone from a movie?" Keanu shook his head, his gaze dropping to the smartwatch, its hum now audible in the quiet. A faint pulse like a distant warning. "No," he said, his voice firmer now, cutting through the stillness. "It's what she doesn't remind me of." The studio felt smaller, the 70-foot space contracting as if the walls were listening. Keanu reached into his blazer pocket, his movements slow, deliberate, and pulled out his phone. The screen glowed with a single text, its words stark against the black background. "Her light blinds, but her truth burns." He held it up, the camera zooming in, the audience leaning forward in their seats. Marcus's eyebrows shot up, his voice a mix of curiosity and unease. "Okay, that's cryptic. You writing a script or decoding something?" A few nervous laughs rippled, but Keanu's expression didn't soften. He set the phone down, his fingers trembling slightly, and looked directly at the audience, his eyes piercing the lens. "This came this morning," he said, his voice steady but heavy, like a man unburdening a secret. "It's not the first." The smartwatch's hum grew louder, its cracked face flickering with a faint light, as if responding to his words. The studio lights flickered again, casting jagged shadows across the stage, and the temperature seemed to dip. The air, now closer to 65 degrees, a chill that prickled the skin. Marcus swallowed, his usual charisma replaced by a quiet intensity, sensing the moment had slipped beyond his control. The audience sat frozen, their collective breath held, as if they knew they were witnessing something more than a talk show segment. Keanu leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his voice dropping to a near whisper that carried through the microphones. "I wasn't going to talk about this," he said, his eyes flicking to the smartwatch, then back to the crowd. "But I can't stay silent anymore." The words hung in the air, a hook that snagged the room's soul. The studio, once a beacon of Hollywood gloss, now felt like a confessional, its lights dimming as if in reverence. Whatever Keanu was about to reveal, it wasn't just a story, it was a truth that demanded to be heard. And the world was watching. The Los Angeles studio of the late glow, still chilled at 65 degrees from the flickering lights, hung in a tense hush as Keanu Reeves leaned forward, his phone glowing with the cryptic text, "Her light blinds, but her truth burns." The audience, no longer the buoyant crowd of minutes ago, sat riveted, their eyes locked on him. Marcus Tate, the host, shifted in his seat, his usual grin replaced by a cautious squint. "Okay, Keanu." "That's intense," he said, his voice tinged with unease. "What's the deal with these messages?" Keanu's fingers tightened around his phone, and he swiped to reveal two more texts, each as stark as the first. "Her words comfort, but her heart is still. Speak, and your shadow will vanish." "These started 3 weeks ago," Keanu said, his voice low but steady, cutting through the studio's 70-foot expanse. "Right after my Instagram got hacked." He paused, letting the weight settle. Posts went up. I didn't write things like, "Silence is your shield." My team couldn't trace them. The crowd stirred, a murmur rippling through the seats. Marcus raised an eyebrow, trying to reclaim the show's levity. "Sounds like the Matrix rebooting. Man, you sure you're not in a simulation?" A few nervous laughs broke the tension, but Keanu's gaze didn't waver, his unease a palpable force. He set the phone down, his hand brushing the cracked smartwatch on the desk, a gift from his late director mentor. Its fractured face now glitching, displaying a countdown, $17. "This started ticking after the first text," he said, his voice dropping. I don't know why. The watch's hum grew louder, a discordant pulse in the quiet. Keanu's eyes darkened as he leaned back, his blazer creasing. It's tied to her Elena Voss. I met her in 2024 at a tech summit in San Francisco. The audience leaned in, the studio's espresso scent fading under the weight of his words. She was different then. Keanu continued, his tone measured but heavy. Not yet the UN envoy. Just a tech CEO. She pulled me aside after a panel, looked me in the eye, and said, "Some truths are too heavy for one voice." I thought it was philosophy. But now, he trailed off, his fingers tracing the smartwatch's cracks. It felt like she was warning me. Marcus, now fully absorbed, forgot his cue cards, warning you about what Keanu's jaw tightened, the countdown ticking to 715958. About what she's become, he said, his voice a whisper that echoed like a shout. The studio lights flickered again, and the audience held its breath. Sensing this was no act, Keanu was unraveling a truth too big for the stage. The Los Angeles studio of the late Glow, already taut with the weight of Keanu Reeves's revelations, seemed to contract further, its 70-foot expanse, now a crucible of anticipation. The air chilled to 65 degrees from the earlier flicker of the 75 degrees through LED lights, carried a faint tang of espresso. But the scent was overshadowed by the electric hum of Keanu's cracked smartwatch, its countdown ticking at 715950. Marcus Tate, the host, gripped his mug, his knuckles whitening as he tried to steer the conversation back to familiar ground. "Okay, Keanu, you've got us spooked with these texts and hacks," he said, forcing a chuckle that echoed hollowly in the silent studio. "But let's talk about something lighter, Elena Voss's new AI initiative. Right. She's out here saving the world with algorithms." Thoughts. The mention of Voss's name hit Keanu like a jolt. His eyes, dark and searching, widened, and his hand froze on the smartwatch, its fractured face pulsing with a faint, erratic light. The audience, still reeling from his talk of cryptic texts and a 2024 summit warning, leaned forward. Their collective breath, a soft hiss in the 500-seat auditorium. Keanu's lips parted, but no words came. Instead, his gaze glazed over, his pupils dilating as if pulled into another reality. The studio's polished oak desk, the glowing screens behind him, the very air itself seemed to dissolve, and Keanu was no longer in Los Angeles. In his mind's eye, he stood on a deserted Silicon Valley campus, the sprawling tech utopia eerily silent, its glass buildings glinting under a pale, lifeless sky. The air smelled of diesel and ozone, heavy with the absence of life. At the center of the plaza stood Elena Voss, her pristine white suit immaculate, her face a flawless mask of calm. But she wasn't solid, she flickered, her form glitching like a hologram caught in a loop, her edges dissolving into static. The glass towers around her, each 100 feet tall, reflected the sky, the ground, but not her. No shadow, no outline, just an uncanny void where her presence should have been. She turned to Keanu, her eyes unblinking, and whispered, "You'll speak, but they'll forget." The words slithered through the silence, cold and final, as the campus screen's 60 frames per second of blank light flickered in sync with her glitching form. Keanu snapped back to the studio with a gasp, sweat beading on his forehead, his blazer clinging to his shoulders. The studio temperature plummeted, a 10-degree ref drop that prickled the audience's skin. The air now a sharp 55-degree rev. The crowd gasped, a collective shudder rippling through the seats, some clutching their jackets. Marcus, his charisma fraying, leaned forward, his voice tight. "Keanu, you okay? Man, that was intense." The smartwatch's hum spiked, its countdown leaping to 48,000, the numbers glowing red against the cracked glass. Keanu wiped his brow, his hand trembling, and met Marcus's gaze. "It's not the first time," he said, his voice hoarse but resolute. "I see her every day." That same vision. The audience was silent, the studio's neon screens casting jagged shadows that danced across their faces. Keanu leaned forward, his elbows on the desk, the smartwatch's pulse a metronome of dread. "It's always Silicon Valley," he said, his words deliberate, cutting through the chill. "She's there, flickering like a hologram, no reflection in the glass, no shadow, just nothing." He paused, his eyes scanning the crowd, as if searching for someone who understood. "She's like a deepfake running the world, a face we trust, but nothing behind it." The comparison landed like a spark in dry grass, igniting murmurs among the audience. Who knew too well the American obsession with curated images? From Instagram influencers to polished politicians, Marcus, now fully unnerved, set his mug down, the clink loud in the quiet. "A deep fake," he echoed, his voice low, no longer playing for laughs. "You're saying Voss isn't real?" Keanu didn't answer directly. He tapped the smartwatch, its countdown now at 475958, and shook his head. "It's not just a vision," he said. "It's a signal. Every time I see her, it's like she's warning me to stay silent or daring me to speak." The studio lights flickered again, a brief pulse that made the crowd flinch, the screens behind Keanu glitching for a split second, as if echoing Voss's holographic presence. Keanu's voice dropped to a near whisper, but the microphones carried it to every corner of the 70-foot stage. "I've had dreams before: grief, loss, the usual stuff," he said, his eyes distant, haunted. "But this feels like I'm seeing something I'm not supposed to. Something no one's supposed to." He looked at the audience, his gaze piercing the camera lens, a direct plea to the millions watching at home. "And every time, she says the same thing: you'll speak, but they'll forget. Like she knows I'm here, right now, talking to you." The studio was a tomb, the audience frozen, their breaths shallow. Marcus, his tie slightly askew, tried to find his footing. "Keanu, that's chilling." "Is this why the countdown's ticking?" He gestured to the smartwatch, its red numbers relentless. Keanu nodded, his jaw tight. "It started with the texts, but it's tied to her, to this." He touched the watch, its hum now a low growl, and the studio seemed to lean in, the walls themselves listening. The lights dimmed, casting Keanu's face in stark relief, his silver-streaked hair catching the glow. Whatever truth he was chasing, it was bigger than the stage, bigger than the late glow, and the audience knew it. The countdown ticked to 475950, and the air grew heavier, as if the world itself was waiting for Keanu to break the silence or be consumed by it. The Los Angeles studio of the late glow was a frozen tableau, its 70-foot expanse suffused with a chilling 55-degree rear of stillness that clung to the audience like damp fog. The LED lights, once a warm 75-degree glow, flickered intermittently, casting jagged shadows across the polished oak desk where Keanu Reeves sat, his cracked smartwatch pulsing with a countdown, now at 475950. Marcus Tate, the host, gripped the arms of his chair, his usual charisma buried under the weight of Keanu's haunting vision of Elena Voss, a glitching, shadowless figure in a deserted Silicon Valley. The audience, 500 strong, sat in rapt silence, their breaths shallow, as Keanu's sweat-dampened brow and trembling hands betrayed a man wrestling with a truth too vast for the stage. Marcus, his voice, barely above a whisper, ventured, "Keanu, that vision, it's like something out of your movies." "What's next? You got more to tell us." Keanu's eyes, dark and resolute, flicked to the smartwatch, its red numbers a relentless march toward an unknown deadline. He reached into his blazer pocket, pulling out his phone with a deliberateness that made the studio's air feel heavier, as if the 55-degree Yarv chill had deepened. "There's this," he said, his voice low but steady, cutting through the hum of the watch. He tapped the screen, and a grainy audio file loaded, its timestamp marking a private summit in Geneva, 2025. The audience leaned forward, the neon screens behind Keanu dimming, as if in deference. He pressed play, and Elena Voss's voice filled the studio smooth, calculated, and cold as steel. "The world doesn't need a leader with a soul, just a face they trust." The words hung, sharp and sterile, before the audio cut to static. A hiss that prickled the skin. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, the sound echoing off the studio's 20-foot ceilings. Marcus's jaw dropped, his mug forgotten on the desk, the gold initials glinting dully. "What the hell was that?" he stammered, his voice cracking. The smartwatch's hum spiked, its countdown leaping to 24,000, the red glow casting an eerie light across Keanu's face. He set the phone down, his hand steady now, as if the act of playing the audio had anchored him. "It was sent to me last week," he said, his tone measured but heavy with conviction. No sender, no trace, just that voice, her voice, saying what she really believes. The studio felt like a courtroom, the audience no longer spectators but jurors, their eyes wide with the realization that this was no performance. Keanu leaned forward, his elbows on the desk, and his voice dropped to a near whisper that the microphones carried to every corner. "There's one more text," he said, swiping his phone to reveal a message received backstage. "Minutes before the show speak, and your shadow will vanish." The words glowed starkly, a threat as clear as it was chilling. "This came right before I walked out here," he said, his gaze sweeping the crowd. "My accounts were hacked again this morning, posts saying, 'Truth is a trap.' It's not just about silence anymore. It's about erasing me, my work, my voice, everything I've built." The audience stirred, a murmur of unease spreading, reflecting American fears of digital cancellation, where a single misstep could obliterate a legacy. Marcus, his tie askew, shook his head, his voice tight. "Erasing you, Keanu. That's insane." "Why you?" Keanu's jaw tightened, his silver-streaked hair catching the flickering light. "Because I chase truth," he said, his words slow, deliberate. "In movies, in stories, in life. Voss knew I'd see through her, through the face she shows the world." He tapped the smartwatch, its countdown now at 23:59:58, and his voice grew fiercer, a quiet fire that burned through the chill. "She's not just a leader. She's a construct, a mask designed to make us trust without questioning. And I won't let that happen." The studio was a void, the audience frozen, their breaths held as if afraid to disturb the truth unfolding. Keanu's eyes, piercing and unyielding, met Marcus's, then flicked to the camera, addressing the millions, watching beyond the 70-foot stage. "I've lost friends to silence," he said, his voice cracking for the first time, a raw edge that echoed his real-life losses. People who didn't speak when they should have. "I won't lose myself to it." The smartwatch's hum grew louder, a low growl that seemed to vibrate the desk, its red numbers a ticking verdict. The lights flickered again, a pulse that made the crowd flinch, the screens glitching with a faint image of Voss's face there, and gone in a heartbeat. Marcus, his composure shattered, leaned forward, his voice barely audible. "Keanu, are you saying someone's trying to stop you? Like, for real?" Keanu nodded, his hand resting on the smartwatch, its countdown relentless. "This isn't just about me," he said, his tone a blend of defiance and dread. "It's about what we're all being sold, a leader who's nothing but a face. A lie we're too afraid to question." He paused, his gaze locking with the audience, a direct plea that cut through the studio's chill. "I'm speaking now because I have to. Because if I don't, that lie wins." The studio felt like a cathedral in the aftermath of a sermon, the audience silent, their faces pale under the dimming lights. The smartwatch hit 23595 few, its hum a heartbeat in the void, and Keanu sat back, his shoulders squared, as if unburdening the truth had fortified him. Marcus, his hands trembling, glanced at the phone, the audio files static still lingering in the air. The crowd, no longer just viewers, felt the weight of Keanu's words, a call to see beyond the curated perfection of Voss's image. The stage, once a beacon of Hollywood gloss, was now a battleground, and Keanu's fight was far from over. The Los Angeles studio of the Late Glow was a silent shrine, its 70-foot expanse locked in a 55-degree chill that seemed to seep from the very walls. The LED lights, once a vibrant 75-degree glow, flickered like dying stars, casting fractured shadows across the polished oak desk where Keanu Reeves sat, his cracked smartwatch now a menacing red at 235950. Marcus Tate, the host, was a shadow of his former charisma, his tie askew, his eyes fixed on Keanu's phone, where the chilling audio of Elena Voss. "The world doesn't need a leader with a soul, just a face they trust," still echoed in the static. The audience, 500 souls packed into plush seats, sat frozen, their breaths shallow, as Keanu's revelations, cryptic texts, a haunting Silicon Valley vision, a hacked legacy, had transformed the stage into a battleground of truth. The air was thick, the espresso scent long gone, replaced by the electric hum of the smartwatch, a countdown to an unseen reckoning. Keanu's hand, steady despite the tremor in his voice, reached into his blazer pocket, pulling out a final artifact, a Polaroid. Its edges curled, its colors faded like a memory. He held it up, the camera zooming in, the audience straining to see. "This was in my dressing room tonight," he said, his voice low but resolute, cutting through the studio's hush. "Left on my script notes, no explanation. The Polaroid showed Elena Voss a decade ago, at a tech conference. Her face unnaturally smooth, her white dress pristine. But the window behind her, 10 feet wide and gleaming, reflected the crowd, the lights, the room, everything but her. No shadow, no outline. Just a void where her presence should have been." Keanu's eyes, piercing and unyielding, met the crowd's. "She's not a leader," he said, his words a blade. "She's a mask." The studio gasped, a collective shudder that echoed off the 20-foot ceilings. Marcus, his hands trembling, leaned forward, his voice barely audible. "Keanu, that's impossible." Keanu didn't flinch. He set the Polaroid down, its image searing into the audience's minds, and swiped his phone to reveal a hacked email, its timestamp from hours before the show. "This came with it," he said, his tone heavy with finality. He read aloud, his voice a quiet thunder. "If the world trusts a lie, only the brave will see the silence." The words hung, a warning and a plea, as the smartwatch's countdown hit. Its hum, silencing abruptly, its screen going black. The studio lights flickered violently, a staccato pulse that made the crowd flinch, and the broadcast cut to static, a harsh hiss that drowned the stage. But Keanu's voice broke through, a lingering echo in the void. "Keep watching." The screens flickered, Voss's face glitching for a split second before fading, and the studio was plunged into darkness. Then silence. When the lights stuttered back, dimmer now at 50-degree hush, Marcus sat clutching the Polaroid, his face pale. The studio like a courtroom at midnight. The audience was still, their eyes wide, as if they'd witnessed a verdict no one could appeal. Keanu sat back, his shoulders squared, his silver-streaked hair catching the faint glow. His revelation had sparked a fire, a global murmur of questions about Voss's true nature. But the truth remained elusive, a shadow, just out of reach. Keanu leaned forward, his gaze sweeping the crowd, then piercing the camera lens to the millions watching beyond. "I learned something tonight," he said, his voice soft but resonant. "A lesson carved from the night's weight. Truth isn't just what you see, it's what you choose to keep seeing, even when the world wants you to blink. We're all sold masks, every day, in ads, in feeds, in leaders. The hardest thing is to look past them, to hold on to what's real." The audience nodded, some wiping tears, the lesson striking a chord in a nation grappling with curated realities, from social media to politics. He paused, his eyes softening, a rare smile breaking through. "Thank you," he said, his voice warm, raw. "To all of you here, and everyone watching at home, you're why I spoke tonight. Your eyes, your hearts, your courage to listen. That's what keeps the truth alive." The crowd erupted, a wave of applause that shook the stage. Not for a celebrity, but for a man who'd bared his soul. Keanu raised a hand, quieting them, his smile fading into resolve. "One last thing," he said, his tone playful, yet pointed. "If you felt something tonight, if you want to keep chasing truth with us, hit that subscribe button on the Late Glows channel. Stay in this fight, don't look away." The studio roared again, the applause a thunder that drowned the flickering lights. Marcus, still clutching the Polaroid, managed a shaky smile, his voice cracking as he spoke. "Keanu, you've changed. Everything." The smartwatch, now silent, lay on the desk, its black screen a testament to Keanu's sacrifice. The stage, once a beacon of Hollywood gloss, was now a crucible of awakening, its 70-foot span, a witness to a truth that would ripple far beyond Los Angeles. Keanu's call to keep watching echoed American whistleblower narratives, empowering the audience to question the masks they were sold. From Voss to the world's countless facades. As the cameras lingered, the static faded. But the questions remained, a challenge to see the silence and to never look away.